Here's another problem I've seen people deal with. They have wood siding, whether it's lap siding or plywood siding, and someone goes ahead and installs a concrete porch or a set of stairs. And this would be more for a raised floor. It would be not for a concrete slab. And let's just take a look here. We would have a raised floor with a floor that would be joist. Go underneath. You have a floor that's joist with a footing. Looking at something like this, you have your soil here. Obviously, the soil would wrap all the way around, and the plywood siding. And this, again, this is a common problem. You do something like this with, you just pour the porch, the concrete up against the wood. There's a good chance you're going to end up with some dry rot and wood damage to the siding and, of course, to the floor framing. Seen it a lot. And what happens is the moisture from the soil, moisture from the air, you go out here and you clean off your walkway or it rains, you got snow sitting on it, the moisture absorbs into the concrete and then absorbs into the wood and then will start to rot it. And, I see it all the time. People just go in there, hey, we need a concrete porch, we're going to build it, pour it up against there, and we're good. And a few years later, you're like, son of a gun, what happened there? This is what it would look like without the siding. You would have the floor framing, and this is the area where the concrete's just going to absorb into the wood siding. And you think, well, wait a minute, what about the building paper that's protecting it? Well, it just rots the building paper. Remember that most building papers that protect the buildings are not waterproof. They are water resistant, and there's a big difference there. So what I'm suggesting that you do is you put some type of a membrane to separate the concrete from the wood. What we did here was simply installed a piece of metal, galvanized metal, and you could always have a couple of pieces. Just make sure they lap about 2 inches, I would imagine would be fine. Sometimes you're not going to be able to find a solid piece. And I'm not suggesting you need a solid piece. You just need something to separate the concrete from the wood. And I would imagine about 26 gauge metal thickness would be fine. But I'm going to leave that up to you. And I would imagine you could also use a rubberized product. I know it as bithurethane. The company who makes it is Grace, Grace. And I believe they also use that material for ice dams. I would imagine that would work just fine. Hold it down about an inch and, make sure that you have at least an inch. Something like this, 2 inches would be nice. That way, when you install the building paper later, you would be able to lap the paper over it. Now, this is for new construction. That's what this video is. If you're going to pour something, you could actually use something like this. Cut the paper around, and of course you're not really seeing a good view of the paper here. The paper does go around the metal, even though it's not showing here. My computer program, thank you. So it's showing the metal there, and then of course cut the wood around it. You would not be pouring this up against wood. You would be spacing it, and I would like to see at least an inch space. You could probably go a ½ inch on the sides and an inch on the top. Something like that would be fine. It's not uncommon. And actually the reason why I'm making this video is because someone asked a question. They wanted to know what they could do to fix something like this that was already built. The concrete was already poured up against the plywood, and it's hard to tell looking at the picture that I received whether or not the plywood goes around it or up against it. But you do need to have a separation here. Otherwise, you're going to have debris build up. You're going to have dirt, leaves, stuff, build up underneath these areas. And I'm not saying if you're a clean freak, you're going to be cleaning these areas. I'm talking about those people who don't. The dirt builds up, and then the moisture will remain in these areas as the debris starts to decompose. or remain moist. It will start to absorb into the wood and start to rot the wood. So that's the reason why I'm suggesting an inch space between the top and at least a half inch around the sides. And there are different ways to do this. I'm just kind of throwing that out there. I cannot tell you how many homes I come up to this day, new homes that were built just a few years ago that pour the concrete stoops or the porches, stairs right up against the wood, and it's not a good thing. Now, if you live in the desert where it never rains, you're not going to have a problem. Obviously, you're going to have more of a problem in areas with moister climates where it snows. You're going to have snow build up in the corners. Snow's going to sit on the porches, stuff like that. And then you're going to have more problems.